connecting. Yes, we are recording.
Okay, the meeting is now being recorded. So welcome to those of you who are seeing this as a recording. My name is Toby Hudson. I'm going to be talking about Wikifunctions, but also about abstract Wikipedia, which is in some sense the goal of Wikifunctions and has been for some years. So I assume that both of these topics are fairly new to all of you in the room. So if this is total news to you, that's totally fine. Don't worry, I have been involved in Wikifunctions for 2 years or something like that. But I'm like one of the few contributors who have been contributing, and so it's expected that no one necessarily knows about it. So that's the starting point for this talk. Let's start here. So what I'll cover today is why we need Wikifunctions and abstract Wikipedia. I'll talk about what Wikifunctions is and what it can do, and then give you some examples of just using it rather than trying to edit it much on the spot. So I'm signed in as Alice has given me permission to edit on her behalf, but I probably won't edit too much just now. We'll try and just see what it can do and see some of the examples I've given there are things, functions that I've contributed to. So I'm a scientist. Converting units is an important thing to us, but examples of the power of Wikifunctions, because it can draw on Wikidata information. You can do things like calculate the time of sunset tonight or something like that. So we'll play with examples like that. But see how this third example about lexemes, that's important to us because we're ultimately abstract Wikipedia is ultimately trying to develop a Wikipedia that works in any language. So getting lexemes from data items is actually a really important thing. So we might go in the direction of talking about words a little bit as well. And I was excited to hear that there are some linguists in the audience, at least at the conference today. So if you're a linguist, I'd love to talk to you about that. And so then I'll give you a few examples of how to use it, just to try it out. You don't have to program it to use it. You can just test it and try and run functions. Unfortunately, one of these methods doesn't work at the moment, but we'll try the rest of them. So I'll just hide the floating meeting controls so we don't have to see them up the whole time. Okay, so here are some things that I will not address. A long list, all valid questions, all things you might care about in Wikifunctions. I'll put this up right at the end as well in question time. So feel free to ask then about any of these things. I can have a shot at some of them. Not necessarily all of them, but these are not the aim today. So why do we need abstract Wikipedia in the first place? Why would we imagine that we want to write an encyclopedia that works in any language? Here is some old graphics, the old meme about how it started and how it's going. So that obviously, I don't know if any of you are around long enough to know that the Wikipedia started with the Hawaiian word wiki, quick, but ultimately we all know it as the encyclopedia, and in particular, we probably know the English Wikipedia. So this is a chart of all of the Wikipedias, all of the different language versions of Wikipedia, which are all, sorry, not all, and maybe not every language in the world, but many languages are represented here. But you can see on the lower axis is the number of speakers of those language, and on the upper axis is the size of the Wikipedia, just measured in gigabytes for now. The aim here, though, is just to notice that although English may have a very large Wikipedia size, this is a logarithmic scale, and you go down by a factor of 10 each time you go down 1 unit here. And so there are, if you speak another language, let's pick even a European language somewhere here that is spoken by 1 million people, well, that is 1, 2, 3 orders of magnitude smaller than the English Wikipedia. And if that's even a rough estimate of the quality or quantity you can get out of the encyclopedia, you'll straight away see that, oh, that's not serving you very well in your heart language. I'm not at all knocking any of these language Wikipedias. I'd love them all to prosper and be written manually by individuals in that language. That'd be wonderful. Or translators bringing it in. But over the 25 years we've had so far, still what we're seeing is people chipping into English Wikipedia and neglecting some of these other ones. Even the readership tend to come in and learn English almost in order to read the knowledge in Wikipedia, but that's kind of not the knowledge equity that we're after. So the idea here is that maybe we can write an encyclopedic article in an abstract way that then can be rendered in lots of languages. So we could have an article about a local suburb in Australia that no other language would care to write, but could be read in other languages. And I'll try and show you that by the end of the so I won't spend too long here. Here's another example of how regional biases or regional interests, I suppose, make linguistic categorization. So these are politicians according to their birthplace, and there's politicians all over the world, but what they're colored by is the one language in which they have a Wikipedia article. So all of these blue spots, those politicians are only written about in Italian. You can't read them on the English Wikipedia. So we're missing out as well. They're obviously, non-English readers are obviously missing out on all of the light blue spots, but English readers are missing out on all the other colors. So it's beneficial for us as well if you're in, like me, a monolingual majority English kind of speaker. So that's why we want to roll out to a bigger linguistic method. The Wikifunctions itself is strictly well, here we go. It's a collaborative hyperlingual library of functions. Its idea is that it's certainly for Wikimedia, but it could be used beyond, and I'll show you a couple of examples beyond. Collaborative, you all know, it's just like Wiki. You can write over my stuff. I can write over your stuff. That's all cool. Don't worry. You can mess with my stuff. It's okay. Hyperlingual, everything about this website is inherently translatable, inherently translated. If my Italian colleague writes a function that he has labeled in Italian, then it comes up to me as either in Italian or untitled. I don't know what it is. I figure out what it is and I can put an English label on it. And then every other English reader will now see that whole function in English. And so that's good news. If we're willing to translate each other's stuff, then ultimately it becomes accessible to all. That includes things like if the output of a function is a number, wouldn't it be good if that number could be read in a script that is not the Arabic numerals? What if we're using a Tamil script? Yes, we can render these numbers into your script. And if you have a different script and want to talk about that, definitely happy to do that. Here's the vision of the Wikipedia that is based on Wikifunctions, so abstract Wikipedia. Collaborative, again, maintaining a collection of language-independent articles based on Wikifunctions with data accessible from Wikidata, which turns out pretty important, to help Wikimedia project expand their article base. Now, so this is another little cautionary note. The idea here is not to overtake natural language Wikipedia. If you're writing an article about something that you know about in your language, that will not be overwritten by abstract Wikipedia. That's not the idea at all. If you've done a customized thing in your language, then great, that'll still work. But if there's an empty page in your Wikipedia that the abstract Wikipedia has some data about, your Wikipedia community could potentially, although not yet, could potentially allow those articles to be shown alongside the natural language ones. They may be marked specially. I don't know the exact plan, but the communities will decide that at some point. Okay, so what's a function? A function is something that takes some inputs and puts out an output. And in the Wikifunctions, this is always a deterministic function. So you always get the same output if you put the same inputs in. In terms of what kinds of things you could put in or get out, here are some examples. But this also is a wiki in some sense. So we have suggested new types, and those new types can be added. So I'm a chemist. I suggested that we have a type for chemical elements, so that if someone wants to put plutonium into their function, then they can choose from a list of all the chemical elements and choose plutonium and see what its atomic number is or something like that. So even this is the current snapshot of types available, but there's definitely scope for even users to eventually create new types and play with those types. There's always discussion of new types. Since I wrote this, complex numbers have come out, and people are talking about syntactic and semantic types, all kinds of interesting stuff for things. So here's a quick example, and I just want to check the time whether I can do this live on Wiki or not. So yeah, I've got a couple of minutes, so we'll try it here. So, but this is a snapshot of what we'll see on the page. So you go to a particular page on the Wiki, and it tells you what your inputs are and what the output will be. And so here's an example of where I've typed, maybe I won't do this one because you can see everything here. I've typed in the quantity I want to convert. And I've chosen one of the hardest possible units of mass that you will ever imagine. So you've heard it, Einstein equals mc squared, right? So the energy is somehow related to the mass. Well, I'm going to convert an energy that is in units of electron volts, which is a type of energy, per speed of light squared. So super weird unit, right? You wouldn't expect to be able to think of this as a mass. And even in my undergraduates, if I gave them this number and said, hey, here's a mass, tell me how much it is in ounces, please, they'd be like, whoa, how do I even start, right? But with access to Wikidata, which has conversions from this to the SI unit kilogram, and has conversions from ounce to the SI unit kilogram, then we can go from this to this and back to this. So if I ask for ounces, I'll get ounces. I click run function, I get this number of ounces. It's a very small number of ounces. If you want to make that many electron volts, you don't need much mass, which is why nuclear fusion works, which is a long story, but another one of my interests. So I won't go on there, but if you'd like to try that, just go to this, just search for Z28509. Hopefully you'll get to a unit conversion and you can type your own thing in. What's interesting a little bit about this, what was very hard about this function was, notice that I've typed it in as a string. Turns out to get that into Wikidata language, it has to figure out, oh, well, what's the unit? What's the QID of this unit that you've typed in as a string? And so there was a little bit of work to get from one to the other, but I like showing that it's possible. And maybe we'll go to there if we get time in questions. So here's another. So that's an example of going directly to the Wikifunctions page and running, choosing your input and running a function. Here's an example which I can't show you the way I wanted to show you because embedding is actually temporarily not working. It has worked on some wikis that have been enabled, but not others. So you can't do this on English Wikipedia. You can't put this command into your talk page or anything like that. It won't do anything. But it can be done on Wiktionary. If you want to put a thing like this, a function call like that in, what you'll see when you save the page is the answer to the function. So you'll see it, the function might spit out a table of all the conjugations of verbs in a particular language with a particular verb. And that whole table would be generated in place in a wiki page, a regular wiki page. So on, in this case, what did I say? One of the Wiktionary pages. Sorry, I don't use Wiktionary, so that's why it doesn't come to the top of my head. So, so yeah, it would come up and just look like a table for the reader, but the editor would see this and wonder what on earth, and they'd have to come to Wikifunctions to improve. So that's another thing which I can't show you right now because it's not currently working. But and by the way, this is all a little bit like in development, and so things stop and start working all the time. So if there's something wrong, it might not be you, it might be the system. But that's quite okay for something in development. Here's another example that I do want to show you. This is a population sentence on abstract Wikipedia. So there's two things here. First, we had to make a function that generates population sentences. And then we're going to take that function and call it from abstract Wikipedia. So here's an example of the call. The abstract, what the article looks like, at least to the editor, is I'm going to do this. I'm going to do string to HTML fragment of an article less instantiating fragment of a Wikidata item that is, I'm telling it is a suburb or locality of Australia, and I want the answer to come back in whatever language this page is rendered in. So see here, the generated text is currently rendered in English, and then we'll see something. That's a first sentence. And then a second sentence is this Australian population sentence with a Wikidata item and a language. And so the idea in English would be to see, and not just the idea, the actual case would be to see this rendered output. We're hoping to make, remember, we're trying to make an encyclopedia article about this thing that is not available in any other language, but we want them to be able to see it in their language. So first we'll check if we can see it in English, then we'll also try and switch to another language and see if the Australian population sentence can be rendered into other languages. And so we'd love to see this article in another language, even though no one has ever written about Midgey, except you, Kerry. Sorry, Kerry Online is from Queensland, and I picked a Queensland example. But yeah, so that's the general idea of what we'll try. And so we'll try that. So let's go to Abstract Wikipedia. Here is the article, like that, how it's constructed. And now it's running, and I think this will time out. We'll have to go again. Alice, you told me you were logged in. We're not logged in. I will log in a second. But anyway, so it has reached the maximum number of retries for whatever reason. And so I'll retry, and now it'll work. I don't know why that is. You don't have universal login? Sorry? You think she'll be logged in if I reload? Okay, sure, let's try. Oh, yeah, totally. You're just testing me, right? Oh, Alice is logged in. She is. Sorry, I apologize, Alice. You were logged in all along. And Sam, you know your way around, clearly. So we have to retry twice, right? Sure. So and I'll after this I'll show you. No, let's make a new one, right? So as Alice is editing, let's choose a subject that she cares about. Wow, great question. I'll try. Okay, so pick a suburb. Stanmore. Stanmore. And so look, so here's a suburb of Sydney, right? So or the locality in Queensland. Which one would you like? New South Wales. Okay, so now that's what you wanted all along. Okay, so now it's nothing. There is no no abstract article for this, and so we're going to make a whole article. So I'm going to make a lead paragraph. I'm going to add a let's go with an empty fragment. Okay, and I'm going to choose a function, and the function I'm going to call is Australian population sentence, and it'll search and find that function. Now, here, I'm going to choose not to even bother saying what I want, because it already knows that the current QID that I'm on is this one, and it already knows that the current language I'm in is English. So actually, look, it's already done that. So I'm going to publish, right? I've done almost nothing. All right, publish, bang. Now we've made an article about Stanmore. And we saw already that in English it looked, well, it's only got one sentence, but it looks okay in English already when we retry it. So let's just make sure of that for English, and then we'll try switching to a new language. So in the Australian census, there's an English Wikipedia link. This one is a Wikifunctions link. Sorry, a abstract Wikipedia link, so we could link to the abstract article about the Australian census, which is not very informative, but you could go there. We could make that too. And here's the interesting bit. Stanmore has a population of 7,619 people. That came from Wikidata. We didn't type that in. Oh, no, you're still in the population. Anyway, sorry. Okay, but let's try that. Actually, it says in 2021, so I don't know if you were in or not. But so let's try switching language. Now, I've chosen this carefully because somebody has somebody has made that function work in German, configured it for the German language as well. So we'll try that. But there's no German encyclopedia article about that. So the DE Wiki link, we can't do that. We don't have a German Wikipedia article about this. But here we go. Out there, I can't even read German. I used to study it, so that's on me. But you can see it's kind of showing the same structure. That there's an article now that Alice made that now shows German people something about Stanmore. Yeah, cool, right? That's the plan. Obviously, we want more sentences and more stuff, and we want more translated into other languages. If I choose a language that's not translated into, you'll see that it gives a default, and the default is a bit rubbish, but it's kind of still there. The Wikifunctions function has not been configured into the Italian language. Long, complicated, don't worry. But what it does do, the default, this is using the default. It's not writing the sentence in German. This is spitting out random bits of sentence in Italian. So the label name is still Stanmore. We've looked up the Italian word for population, so at least we got that right. And then we've still got the number. So it's kind of like just collecting bits and pieces to show something. But an Italian editor may well come along and translate the Australian population sentence function, which if they do that one thing, it would then work for every suburb in Australia that has been created, which is like they're really leveraging their stuff onto a whole Wikipedia. So, okay, I've gone over to 4 minutes. Go, questions. Who wants to? I reckon we should give in-rooms people first. So, yeah, go ahead.
If I was to go off to abstract Wikipedia and do exactly what you've done, like every suburb in Canberra, create a population
sentence, yep.
What would that be like? What would I be contributing? Like, well, how would that benefit? Is that abstract Wikipedia? Like, what does that accomplish? Is that that's the right question to ask.
Well, it's accomplishing letting Germans read about every suburb in Canberra if they want to, if they come this way. But I guess we're not rolling out robots to do that. First of all, because it's only one sentence. Ultimately, we'd love you to write whole articles about Stanmore, right? Or as ACT pub. So I'm not. Yeah, roughly, yeah, or languages. So that's roughly fine. I'm not actually encouraging all the editors to suddenly switch over to abstract Wikipedia because at the moment there's not many sentences available to you. So I'll show you Australia. I tried to make. No, I won't. I'm just kind of giving you a vision at the moment. But yeah, if you'd like to contribute functions, then sure. Here's an example. I tried to make like a bit of an article about Australia. So here's a bunch of sentences and things about Australia, and of course it will render. So I'll take another question while it renders. Yeah, who's got something? Yeah, go for it.
Functions. Like
yeah, all this. Oh yeah.
other?
Yeah, that'll show up in whatever sorry, if the label has been translated, which it probably has. If I switch language here, I'll do it here. No, sorry, this is not my computer, so I don't I'll switch to Italian. Let's just see how it works. So this is now changing sorry. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay, never mind. The interface language should draw labels from whatever language if they've been translated, or just backups if not. Do you want to pick something online, or there's a couple more in the room?
Aside from being purely human driven, how does abstract Wikipedia square with LLM-based solutions, of which Grokpedia is potentially the best?
Okay, I won't go Grokpedia at all, but this was proposed before LLMs hit mainstream, and it currently does not use LLMs to do any of its translation. Everything is deterministic. You will get what you think you'll get. It's not, it can't hallucinate. It'll give you what you asked it to give you if you've got the functions right.
Do you think it's going to, sorry, I do think this is about,
good.
Do you think it's going to result in generating really dry, repetitive prose?
Yes. At the moment, the prose, certainly at the moment, and I'll hopefully show you some of this dry, repetitive prose. At the moment, it's super dry, repetitive prose, really boring to read. But if you can't read English and this is your only thing about Stanmore, maybe that's better than nothing. So, yeah. I think we can work on that. I'm keen to make it possible to put sentences in a way that you want the sentence to read, but there's some debate about that actually. Yeah, go ahead.
From what I understand, the raw data is all wiki data.
No, yeah, not quite. So thank you. That's a good question. Some of the population was drawn. In that example I gave you, everything was drawn from Wikidata and the function itself. This example is not. So here, I've coded that what I want this sentence to say is I want an article-less instantiating fragment to call Australia a middle power, which, don't worry, politics or power or something. Yeah. Well, no, I got this from the Australian Wikipedia article. So if you've got anything wrong, if you've got anything against that, go edit Australian English Wikipedia. The other thing I'll say, since we're arguing about English, is look, you can have Australian English, which you can't have on Wikipedia. So all of you speak language which is not even, there is no Wikipedia. So we could configure it to say whatever we like. But that's a side point. Carrie, go ahead. I don't know if I can hear you. Oh, sorry.
This is a bit of a test. Hi, Carrie.
Hi. As someone who actually has done something...
Sorry.
Start again, Carrie.
As someone who has actually done a lot of generation of article content from government databases, not Wikidata in this case, but Queensland government databases, the reality of doing this stuff is that you've actually picked one of the few things that's relatively doable, which is the population, census populations. Generally, you can generate a lot of the info box, a fair bit of it, but when it comes to the actual article content, no, you can't. So what I do is I generate, like lists of, here's lists of mountains, here's lists of rivers and schools and things, but you've still got to manually construct a sentence. It's not really generatable at all. So it's more about just providing data. Yeah.
I get the question. Can you hear me? The answer is a bit like the question that was asked a second ago. The Australian population sentence I showed you was, as you say, fully constructed from Wikidata data, and I didn't have to really do anything. Whereas you see over here in the Australia article, I've tried to speak into the article. I haven't drawn this list of states from Wikipedia. I've said, I want to make a list of states of Australia, and the list I would like, please, is first New South Wales and second, anyway. So second Queensland, there you go. I'm sure it was alphabetical or something like that. But the point is, no, this is a list of states. I think there you go. I made an editorial decision that I was going to write just about the states, but you are welcome to add a new sentence about the territories. Right? So my point is I think that's exactly Kerry's point, that when we try to create articles that have interesting stuff about them, that they won't all be in Wikidata already. The interesting stuff won't be in Wikidata already. So we are trying to do more than just re-express Wikidata. Thanks, Gary. Good question. And I'm being told that I'm done. So thank you all for attending. I think that was probably all I wanted to say.
I did this to keep us on time. However, Toby, you are a man of your own time and we are going out to lunch. So are you okay if people approach you in the courtyard to discuss this further?
Absolutely. But I guess I'll say goodbye to anyone on the recording and shut the recording. Thanks.
So there are boxes out there with food in it, but the lids are still on. So
Take off the lids.
we need to take off the lids, but in an orderly manner rather than just throwing food everywhere. So whomever is first in, gently remove the lids, please, until we get.
Also, if you're not actually vegan, please leave the vegan option for the vegan person. Because that will not happen at home.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
You stop.